So as we get ready for event number 7 of SailGP season number 4, Todd Harris, Stevie Morrison, alongside Emily Nagel. Guys, exciting. Stevie, let's talk about this course. You've sailed there before. You've been there before. What can we anticipate?
Well, I think it's another classic venue where it's going to be light winds. It's a very tight race course. Should be flat water because it's inside the breakwater there. And we've just got to hope, that we get that little bit of wind to get up on foiling, but don't expect a lot of wind. I think that's something we can say for sure.
Emily, for the sailors, is this going to be very similar or completely similar to what we saw in Dubai?
I think there's definitely elements that are the same, but what's really interesting here is that the course is pretty much surrounded on all sides. So it's going to be really flat water venue, but you're also going to have some like funky wind shifts going on with kind of, you've got one side that's the docks, another side that's a park, and then the far side is massive buildings. So the dynamics will definitely be different.
The big story during the off time during the holiday, Stevie, is obviously Tom Slingsby was not at a race. Jimmy Spithill filled in for him. He's stepped aside now to go in a management position, and then Ben Ainslie steps aside. He's now in a management position. Is this retirement trend something that is going to take a hold, or do you think this is something that's further discussions need to happen on each and every team?
I think it's an interesting point of discussion. It'd be interesting for people out there in the public world to see what they think of it. I mean, the results didn't dictate it. I think that's the interesting thing for me. If you'd asked me back in the summer, then Ben Ainslie hadn't won anything for nearly 2 years. And I think I said on the show, has he lost it? Has he passed it?
Yeah.
He then went and won Saint-Tropez, he went and won Taranto, and then Jimmy Spithill went and won Cadiz. So
this is true. Emily, you look at other professional leagues, professional sports, there's not a lot where you have athletes still competing in their 40s or even late 40s. And here we are in sailing, and we've got a lot of the people that fall into that category. But it's to Stevie's point, they're still delivering.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting thing in the sport of sailing because it's not just in SailGP. You've got it in offshore sailing. You've got guys still in their 60s actively competing and the whole professional circuit. And the difference being with SailGP is that it is that little extra bit high performance, like foiling. It's a completely different ballpark than a lot of sailing where there isn't an age limit. So I think we might be starting to discover that point. You are going to get a bit slower in how you move across the boat. The boats are physical. For the helm, it isn't super active, but you are still running across a boat with quite high G-forces, and you want to be fit and able to deal with that.
Well, I think the interesting thing to it is where we are with foiling in sailing and the evolution of that. Foiling, we're used to it on SailGP. It's very new in sailing.
Yeah.
So I grew up in boats that sat in the water, didn't hydrofoil. Ben Ainslie did. But to that, Eric Heil, Taylor Canfield, they all grew up in slow boats. And they're the very best in the world, but in slow boats. We've got a generation of children. Some of them are in the Inspire League. Some of them have not maybe been exposed to the Inspire League, but they're sailing, foiling boats. And that's their new normal, if you like. They grow up, they're using simulators to learn how to sail boats, computer games, they're on foils, they're going fast. It's when I think that generation comes in, which might be 5 years away, 3 or 4 years away, I don't know.
It might even be sooner, though. I mean, you look at some of the sailors in the fleet, like Leonard Takahashi, for example, who was on the Japanese team, is now part of the American team. He was sailing in the Youth America's Cup back in 2016 or 2017 in foiling boats. So he is part of that, kind of the first part of that generation coming through that has been exposed to these high performance boats from a very young age. It's just second nature at this point.
Going back to the retirement and the moving on, Giles Scott comes in, obviously decorated 2 Olympic gold medals. But did you think this would have been the right time to elevate Hannah Mills to that position? I know it's a tough question.
I do think it would have been nice for her to have that opportunity. I think in general across the fleet, it would be nice to start seeing the teams investing more in the sailors within their own teams. This is a trend we've now seen multiple times whenever someone, whether that's a driver or a crew member, has stepped out for an event, whether that's for personal circumstances, injury, whatever it may be, they hire someone who's kind of been within the league, someone like Nathan, who's involved but not on a boat.
But isn't that because it's professional sport?
And
we want to win, don't we? You hire the best
100%.
people. So until Hannah Mills shows us she's the best,
but
then
why don't
she
you
needs the time
hire
practicing
within your roster. So if you got it to a point where every team knew,
because they don't think there's anyone in their roster good enough.
Well, set it up from the beginning of the season.
Well, they need to give them the practice, don't they?
They do.
But I think that's
maybe they should.
Well, and I'm sure they should. But I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
Is I personally, I think we should be asking Hannah Mills. Does she think she's ready? My guess is she says, I need a little bit more time. Otherwise, you're not going to see the real Hannah Mills. You're going to see an under-practiced, underperformed Hannah Mills.
And
She
to
needs
Emily's
that
point,
time.
though, where is she going to get
agree.
that time? When does she get that time?
fully
And that's
agree
the
with-
bigger question.
Yeah.
That's I really think the important thing is they've got to have the time. I think we shouldn't criticise the teams on race day for thinking, who do I want to go out there and win? I'm going to go to Nathan Outridge. Of
No,
course.
so that's not exactly what I'm saying. Like, I fully understand why you would choose, Giles Scott to take the helm, why you choose Nathan Outridge to take the helm. They want to win. But as a league, I think it would be interesting if, say, a rule was introduced of, okay, you can have 9 spots within your team for this season.
Okay, yeah. No.
If something was to happen,
You have to pull from that pool.
Yeah.
from that
Yeah,
group.
that's- I get it.
And then they would invest that time because it adds that incentive of if something goes wrong, we need to have someone backed up, ready to be the flight controller, be the wing trimmer,
Yeah.
or take the wheel.
A bit of redundancy. Yeah, and I get it. And to
Exactly.
Stevie's point, though, if you were, let's say, talking about like NFL football, they're going to find the best possible quarterback to replace Tom Brady. Who's going to give us the best chance of winning?
And I fully think Hannah Mills, Tash Bryant can
Liv
be
Mackay,
that best quarterback. They've
Yeah.
got to have the chance to throw the ball a bit, and we shouldn't throw them in until they're ready and have had the opportunity to do it because we want to see how good they really are. Hannah Mills has won 2 Olympic gold medals, a silver medal. I mean, she's absolutely phenomenal.
Spectacular.
Sailor, Tash Bryant's out there right at the thing. Liv Mackay, all of them. Leanne Matro's on board, Laurent Matro's on the boat the whole time for the Swiss. But they need the time on the tools to show how good they are. We'd be throwing them under a bus if we didn't give them the practice.
This is a great discussion. We move forward now. Giles Scott is getting that position. Is he ready, Stevie? And is this the best way to introduce him with what's predicted to be light winds and the 29-meter wing?
I personally believe it is. Yeah, I mean, Giles comes from the Finn class. If you're new to sailing as a whole, the Finn class is quite a slow boat. Goes quite slow. If I liken it to the track and field Olympics, then I would say SailGP is the 100 meters. It's a sprint, an absolute sprint, high performance sprint, twitch muscles, quick reflexes. Got to go with it. The Finn class is your 5,000 meter. Okay, it's endurance, it's quite long, it's slow, your decision making's in there. There's decision making all the time, but the race takes place over time. So Giles has got to learn that twitch reflex, but away from SailGP, he's also sailing in the America's Cup for the British representative there, and he's getting a lot of hours helming these fast boats, which again, not to come back to that previous point, but Giles is away helming a fast foiling boat all the time. Hopefully Hannah, hopefully Tash, whoever it is going to get that sort of time invested in them. But Giles is ready. I think light wind's good for him because the decision making will be slower. The real test for him, like the real test I think for Taylor Canfield and that new US team, is going to come in Sydney when we get 15, 20 knot nor'easter coming down the harbour. Now we're going to find out if you can sail a foiling boat or not.
As we are now in the second half of the season, Emily, will season 4 be remembered as the season of change? With Tom Slingsby taking one off, Jimmy Spithill retiring, Ben Ainslie retiring. Is this an opportunity for the Diego Botines, the Quentin Delapierres, Nikolai Sehesteds, Eric Hiles to step up and fill that void?
I definitely think it is. Things are changing and progressing all the time. It's not just, the drivers that have changed. Plenty of other positions swapping around here and there, the addition of new teams, the increase in kind of that focus on the female athletes and getting their time on the water. And I think the pressure is always on kind of those younger sailors to step it up. Like, you are performing on the world stage, you are racing against the world's best sailors. You need to perform at some point, and yes, you've got to have your intro to the fleet. Like, you're going to start off at the back of the pack. But at some point, you have to step up.
Stevie, I want to ask last question for you. Sailing in 2024 is going to get a huge audience, not only from SailGP finishing up in San Francisco in July, but then the America's Cup comes up, and then right after the America's Cup, it's back to SailGP Season 5. So a lot of eyeballs that may not be watching sailing normal years are going to probably watch this year. Is this an opportunity, and is this a chance that SailGP has to dominate and has to be able to take advantage of?
I think it's an opportunity sailing has to be ready to take care of. I mean, I'm sat in this room because I believe sailing is just an incredible. The fact we're talking about, should someone retire at 47 or 46, however Ben is, or not, it is testament to the fact that sailing, it doesn't matter ability levels in terms of, how well you can move how well you could sail the boats or whatever. It is basically the most open level playing field sport there is out there. Okay, all abilities, all ages can get out there and compete on the same playing field, and I think we have to take care of that and embrace that sailing can offer all of this. We've got to sell the sport. We've got to show how interesting it is. But yeah, fundamentally, it's not the easiest sport to understand straight off the bat. It's actually a lot simpler than I think sometimes it's made to be, and I hope that's what we can do in SailGP. I think the America's Cup, the Olympics, they're all it's the best of the best this year in sailing, and a lot of sport in general, of course. But yeah, we absolutely have to embrace it. People have to come on board, and that's why it's a real privilege to be sat here in this room and try and promote and sell the sport. And yeah, I hope we can.
And I forgot about the Olympics too. You mix in the Olympics, America's Cup, and SailGP. A lot of stuff. A lot of people watching. All right, rapid fire question: who is going to win this event, the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Sail Grand Prix event, in your mind?
My eyes are on the Kiwis. I think with the 29-meter wing, we've looked at the numbers from it. They perform very well with that big wing. It's not necessarily their boat speed itself, but the fact that they sail significantly less distance when they have that wing in these light wind conditions. And I think they're also tactically one of the better teams when it comes to these conditions, spotting all of those shifts, sailing, that optimum course, just that little bit better. We didn't see that in the practice racing, but I'd still put my money on them.
Who do you like?
I think Emily's right. It's been a big Christmas. My gut biome is talking to me, Todd. It's the Paris 2024 Olympics. The French are finding form. Quentin de la Pierre sounded calm, calculated on practice day. I'm going roguely with the French.
Wow. I thought for sure you were leaning towards Giles Scott for the
gut
Cinderella
biome,
story.
baby. You got to listen to your gut biome, and that's where I am right now.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. We look forward to the 7th event, the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Sail Grand Prix, presented by Abu Dhabi Sports Council.
Todd, you didn't give us your prediction.
No one wants to hear my prediction, but if I was going to go out on a limb, honestly, if I was going to take a flyer, I'm going to say Phil Robertson in Canada.
Not a bad shout.
The Gunsmoke.
The
Bring in the Gunsmoke to Abu Dhabi.
Straight from the hip. Phil Robertson.